and she put that cane in front of her like that, and she walked. She never gave up with herself, and she even had a string from the house to the back outhouse. We asked her, "Can we take you?" "There's nothing wrong with my feet," she said. She used to tell us. So we always have to remember that, you can offer help, but you have to make sure that you're right around, even if they don't want you to around there.
Good. Thank you. Louise,
and that's the message of that song that I'm singing, is never give up hope. Thank you. Gonna choose the one. Thank you all for listening for me.
I just want to say Ganachish for honoring the Taka River Tlinkits today. It's the first time I'm actually been representing the Taka River Tlinkits as an elder, and it feels really good. And like, I think the importance for me for today is for us to be together the way we're together right now around the fire. I always think about what the elders have taught me. My dad and my mom, they used to love to visit with the people. And one night I stayed at my mom and dad's place, and I heard my dad talking to my mom, and he said, "Those Teslin people, they don't come over to visit us anymore." And he said, "I'm going to call Georgina." He said, "Not Richard, him too, he's never come over to visit us." He said, "I'm going to call them, and I'm going out hunting today, and I'm getting a moose," he said. So he called up Georgina, and he said, "I'm getting a moose, and you guys come over and visit," he said. So the next day, I looked at my mom and dad's place. There was just cars parked all over the place. Everybody came to visit. He got his wish. And I'm thinking, why can't we do that today? It's so easy to do, and it's so much fun. Let's go back to the old ways and look at what our ancestors from above told us to do. And that's telling us to do right now as we stand around the fire. And I just want to say that we have to find a way to reunite and like build each other up. Ganachish, everybody. I'm honored to be here.
Okay. Men's turn.
So I've asked Sam and Patrick and James if they would also sort of give us some guidance and some direction to say a few words and what we need to do. So maybe come up.
Goodness cheese, the cut you want. Hey, I got to Adi. You can't Adi, you can't let you. Yeah, the tin, it's all good. You was cooked to Aden. Yeah, that's a connect to Just on as to do take and talk. Yeah, was good. As cooked to Adi, Achas Aden. Yeah, connect to I just said, thank you very much to all of you for coming here. This is one good thing, and this is a good start to trying to bring back how our ancestors used to get together. They didn't have no big organization called themselves Inland Tlingit, but they were just a group of Tlingit people. This is the kind of examples that they set for us. So let's carry on. This is a good start. And it's a lot easier for us to travel today than they had, our ancestors. They either traveled on foot or by water. All I always say, we're just over the mountains. We can get here. So, so anything going on in Teslin, you people are welcome to come. Anything going on in Carcross, we'll do our best to be here. Same thing with Ackland. That's how the people used to get together and share different things. Anything from moose meat to fish and things like that. So this is a good beginning, and I think it's something that's good that's started. Our ancestors left us a good example, so let's continue and follow this. Thank you very much. I like to say thank you for everyone coming and joining us, and at this very important occasion. And like Sam says, you know, that how we used to do it, as we used to walk. And there's trails connecting up each community. And that's how it used to be done. And we send a messenger, and a few months later, then they have the gathering. You know, those are some of the important things. And the other important things that happen, like this occasion, somebody is going to tell a story about it. Somebody's going to pass it on through stories. And our history, that's how our history is passed down from one generation to the other. Those are some of the important things that we try to do today. And I talked to the leadership at different occasions and Carcross here, you know, is how we pass these information on, and that's how important it is that we continue to do that. And let's try to get away and not rely too much on the technology that we have today, like computers and you know, whatever, you know. Years ago, these things were passed down, and that's history. That's how we lived. This is how we used to be. And important occasions, you know. The one thing that's very important I see today, you know, is that we rely on technology, you know, like computers. And this is how our history of land claims negotiations, land claims agreements and how they were made, and they're all in these computers, but we don't pass that on through verbally to our children. And that's the important part, that the elders tell us not to rely on these things. Or paper. They said paper, they call it cook. And if something it burns up, we got no history. And that's the way that we carry on our history, is verbally. We pass it down from one generation to the next. And those are some of the important things. And I'd just like to say thank you once more for each and every one of you for coming out and help us, you know, and as we help you too as well, you know. So kunashish.
Kiruda, James Williams. I'd like to welcome you all to home here. We're going to talk as First Nation, as a nation. I think this is all of our homes. When you come to Athens, I always say, welcome home. I come here, I tell people, welcome home. I go to Teslin, I tell them, welcome home. We are that one nation, and we have to start practicing it. The elders told me years ago, when she was going to have a baby in Teslin. They send a runner to Athens. They send a runner to Carcross. We're going to welcome this new child into our nation, and they celebrate. Not for a day, maybe a month. So all these things that we've got to try to bring back, we've got to make the time. We always say we're too busy. We're never too busy. If we've got time to go home and watch TV, we've got time to do something else. I'll give you a little example. The other day, my wife, I'm kind of deaf, but I had the TV turned up and she said, God, turn that TV down. I can't even hear mine. So, I turned it off that day and I haven't turned it back on since. And that's close to a month. But that's why I say when I found I had time, I could do other things. And I think that's the elders always said, we celebrated. We had potlatches. We didn't look at anybody and say, well, oh, she only bought a piece of dry meat. She brought a piece of dry fish. No, whatever you brought, you share. And through these potlatches, we have a lot to learn. It's a great teaching to all of us. We're not there to judge what you bring. We're there to welcome you and share your stories, whatever it may be. The rough trip across the lake, the moose hunt you went on, the sunny, rainy day that you traveled, whatever. But you all shared and got along. We don't have that time nowadays to do that. First thing we say, oh, you got to give me money for gas. I remember Leo Takujak. They send us across the lake, get camp ready. But we bring as many people as we can with us. It wasn't, oh, you owe me money for gas. Just come. Let's have fun. And that's what we're doing today is we're gathering. We're small now, but maybe next year we'll be greater. Or as things grow, we'll become more enjoyable with one another. Get back that love and respect that we should have for each and every one of ourselves. Goodness cheese.
You're the boss. You're the boss. Take over. My turn. They already heard enough from me, but I just want to express my appreciation for everybody coming and for for this type of thing, because it's really about when we work together, we become strong, right? When we share our stories. And I also just want to acknowledge, I think the school has joined us, and I just want to acknowledge the students at the school and just express my appreciation for you, that you listen to these stories and that you'll learn. This is, as has been pointed out, the stories are critical to how we hang on to our culture and who we are.
So we'll all just make our way inside and we can get going and start telling some techniques. Short and sweet.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to learn from you.
Like this thing. It's on. I'm just waiting for them to turn it on, like the sound up. Yeah. Test, test, test. No. No. Can you hear it? Just speak.
Test 1, 2.
Okay, you gotta talk right closer. Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. If everyone can Gindiak or GNU, 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 GNU. Yeah, and so we'll get going here in 1 minute, and Mark will start us off with some site logistics. Just give everyone a minute to sit down. So this is the microphone. Yeah. I think people will start to trickle in.
Good afternoon. Could we just ask everyone to take a seat, please? So I'll just get started. My name is Mark. I'm the facility manager here at Hashigun Hidi. First of all, welcome everyone. Glad to have you in our house. It's nice when our house is full. So just a couple of quick things for people who may be wondering. If you need a washroom, just out this first door to the right and turn right again in the hallway. Men's and ladies' washrooms are there. If there's any elders that feel that they want to be somewhere a little more comfortable and still be able to hear, there's comfortable chairs in this boardroom. There's an elders lounge here that has some recliner chairs. Feel free. Our house is your house. Make yourself comfortable. What I did want to be, and now I'm going to be colonial for a moment, because we have to. With COVID, believe it or not, we had a great celebration, and Marilyn will attest to what I'm about to say. Marilyn was here doing lateral kindness 3 weeks ago, a month ago, Marilyn. And as part of celebration, we wanted to take a picture in front of the panel. And some people were doing what I'm doing right now. They didn't have their mask on. Believe it or not, the next morning, the COVID police were here at our health director's door asking what we were doing. So I caution, if you're sitting on your chair, we're pretty much in a bubble. We're a little bit tight on space. We're kind of not a caribou apart. We're maybe half a caribou. I think we can get away with that. But what I was just about wanting to ask people is if you're taking pictures, super, but just please be cautious if you're posting on social media, because this is what happened. Somebody saw a picture, called it into the COVID line. Less than 12 hours later, we had a visit down here. So I would just ask everybody to kind of think about that before you post a picture. If you want to take a picture of somebody, just get them to pull their mask up maybe for a second. I didn't say that, did I? But we got to be smart about it. But again, if you want a picture, just think about that a little bit. If you have any other questions, happy to answer. I'm going to be hanging around the back. I'm probably the only guy wearing a red shirt that says staff on the back, so I'm easy to find. I'll give it back to Autumn. She can take you through the rest of the agenda. Have a great afternoon. Ganeshish.
Ganeshish. Ganeshish ha'in adi yak a sikimsan itach shakatiwan. Good afternoon, everyone. Yak a yichsatini itach. It's good to see you all. I would like to firstly acknowledge that we are on the Natasahini Kwan, Carcross Tagish First Nation traditional territory, and in the Shaklagay, beautiful Hashigun Hidi, our ancestors' house. And I would also like to acknowledge Auckland Kwan, Kadeslin Kwan, and all other community people that are joining us. And lastly, I would also like to acknowledge that we have a class joining us from Juneau virtually right now. That's being taught by Kuetlituma teacher Sikinya Stephanie Sidney. That's Teslin Tlingit Council First Nations. The class is Tlingit Culture, Language, and Literacy, and she teaches a grade 4-5 class. But we also have visitors from the same school, their K1 class, so a total of 48 students watching. Woohoo! Tlingit Yuchatangi Khashaguk, Chiyegu Gank Wasaku. I'm learning to speak my Tlingit language. I know a little bit. Please forgive me as I may make some mistakes and mispronounce some words, but I'm going to try my best. Sky de uyu chat du sauk, autumn jewels glake kachenach, duckla shaw ayachet, kashada honey techunch yudu sagun, late Doug Smart Senior glake kachenach, ach claw kagane yudu sauk, Connie Jules glake kachenach, ach lilk kashtach claw, mini Jules glake kachenach, and ach lilk du claw, ach sai sky de u yudu sagun late Mary Graffy Jules glake kachenach. So I'm not going to translate my introduction today from a very good teaching that I had from Shirley Adamson, but you can get the gist of what I said. Yeah, so just to say welcome to the Nation Rebuilding, Reuniting the Nation Elders Virtual Storytelling Gathering. That's a mouthful. Yeah, so I just wanted to start off in a short connection to a story for me. Growing up, I was always taught story from Elder Taku Kla Pearl Keenan. She was a huge role model for me. And that's where I got my first teachings. I learned so many right and wrongs and so much our histories, ways of being, laws, values that I didn't even know at the time. And it wasn't until recent years that everything started to click when I started learning the Tlingit Yuchatangi, the Tlingit language. And opening my heart up to Creator and embracing the power of story. It's an honor to be here today and be witness to all of the stories to come. I would also like to acknowledge the storytellers and their willingness to stream, share, and document this event for future generations. I would also like to acknowledge our virtual audience for joining us in today's events. And just a quick reminder to please put your phones on silent while people are telling their stories. So I just want to invite Mark and Patrick to start us off today. So if we could get a mic to Mark. Are we going to skip that? Is we ready to? Okay. Yeah.
So are you Mark? There you go. Are you Mark? Are you Mark?
I'm a marked man. Well, I'm sure you guys don't want to hear from me anymore. You've already heard a lot from me. But again, one of the things that we talked about, what was important when we started to talk about, the nations coming together, it's all about relationships, right? It's about how our relationships work and how we maintain it. And I think that's one of the themes that I heard as James was talking, as Patrick, as Sam, as our elder matriarchs were talking. It's about how we look after our relationships, how we look after each other. And that's the foundation of who we are. And can I tell a story too? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. When Crow was out there, right? And Crow kind of needed some help and wanted to get people together. He took that cottonwood tree, the bark from the cottonwood tree. I know everybody, and I'm probably not doing the story justice, but he carved a man and a woman. And he put this man together and he put this with this woman. And he said, cook. And here they just went like this. Turn your back. They kind of went like that because they didn't get along. So Crow said, maybe I didn't get it right. So he carved another man and woman out of this cottonwood tree. And he put them together. Here the same thing, and when he put them together, So he took this man and this woman, and he changed them. And they just were fit together like a glove. And that's how the basis of Wolf and Crow, about how we work together. The wolf and crow fit like gloves, right? And that's what we learned from Crow when he created the man and the woman, about how, and that's the foundation of one of the things that we have, is the wolf and the crow, how they work together. And one of the things that I'm Deshitan,
Tla'an Gushu, and An De Du Hen, which is Jake Jackson's name, and Tlagu Ha, which is Tommy Sparch's name. Tla'an Gushu is Matthew Fred's name. He asked that to come inland. And those are Deshiton names. And there's a Deshiton crest song. We all have crest songs, each of the clans. And I was just telling one of the stories to some of the younger people a while ago. The Deshiton crest song talks about that. When, it talks about that little beaver you guys have told you before. But the foundation of it is that when we look for help for each other, it's to the opposite clan. Right? When we're hurt, and when the Crow people are hurt in the Deshiton, it's going to be the Wolf people that's going to help us. And it's going to be the other way. When the Wolf people are hurting and whatnot, then it's up to us Crow people to help them, to help carry them. And that's that foundation of that relationship of who we are, right? That relationship between the clans and the Wolf and the Crow and how we get along. Anyway, I didn't mean to say all that because you guys heard enough from me. So that's all I had to say. I think Patrick's not here, so you'll have to speak for him.
Goodness, sheesh. I'm gonna sit down so I can take off my mask. Hinach Dwasagu. So we'll start off with a draw. Exciting. We'll get a Nachlahash to pick. Oh, just one. So the prize, I'm not sure what the prize is, but the winner is Lindsay Cornell. Woohoo! Give her a round of applause. So you could find your prize maybe on the break. Goodness, geesh. So I guess we'll start off today. I just want to start off by mentioning to please introduce yourself before you tell your story. We'd love to hear any Tlingit Yuchatangi language, even if it's just your name. Please forgive me, as we have many storytellers here, Yagi, today. Please be mindful of the time, as each storyteller will have Jinka Winnets, 10 minutes. We have many Shkashnik stories to witness Yagi today. So let's all work together and make sure everyone has the opportunity to share their Shkashnik stories. So, Ganeshtish. So I'm first going to introduce our first storyteller, and it's a Nachlahash, Sam Johnson, and he's Teslin Tlingit Council of First Nations.
Ganeshtish. Stekadate. Tlingit. Okahinen. Stekadat edachti segud. Yuchasa atkin. Take a gay, so you are? Yes. Aya, hatu good. Ukahai at Kakushi. Yana good, aya. Is that a cute age? Is it yana good? Chocolate, do a good year, sing it. Ah, cook it, yeah. Oh, good. You see, your doctor at Katura, TRT. John, what's a TRT? I'd say at Caxetinia at Hagudia. Is it the walk? Cake out, eatly. It take kind of out, the walk a darker. Well, ach, geez, yonder, 8 days, a hind cananig. Yeah, Kiana Coco. He said, Doctor, good. Yeah. Sing it, cook it here. That's it. It's like how just talk But the good the walk, okay, county, take on a county, again, Kakainik, Yakan, a coco. He said, Doctor, who good is at least what the walk, she eat, Yakan, a coch, Yakan, a coch. And I go, good. Go, so yak. Just klein, I shall go in a sash. Go, say yak, you can Kadenya kada snugueta kada naknate. This is a doctor who good. She certainly go out there to walk so she ya kana koch ya kana koch. Ada go good so. He did go Australian to create the and come the I in a hush. He said to walk. In kanto na ku se kini ko ya ka na ko ito ka sa ti kai no ka tik til so inch kai sak yu da ka is it tak to good ko ka sha is ka say so this you got out so ya kana ko Lecha koos no knitch, a day a geen knitch. Is ada goed. He did Kashukwan, and Haskeka, Kaslingade at the word. Here are Haskok like it. Jesu has the Okendian. Hasko at walk wait Katin. Hasko has the Akad was for his Kuwachi. Hasakauti. Kohasudi attest on it. It is Katurak Takut, go so walk. Come do it. It's a master at Kakati. It's a doctor who go there. Kanata, Kakauti to walk eating a cowty. It's a heart good. I think it on it to walk it. At walk, I come do it, I wish I don't snake. I hagger. Kitten, you cadutin, horse, to cadutin, to a chic dog come do it. Hokkot is to G on the Cheshire of a cow shot walk, a cocoa rick. Eso, a hood decking. Ja. Kan ka. Je doet zaken zeggen die nachtje ke de kent. Kisee het laag het terug. Yes, kleed. Je gaat het in je doet niks. Oké. Nu je zegt. Jeet afgekomen de kort, de katje, ajet uit je gewoed hier. Het is al, je wordt lachen. Kaya, ja, de walk. Het kan je ook gekend. Je dit, die one, je is geen zitenen, de gewoon kan in go, nee, de walk, je kon ook niet. He knew a cocky, ye, a two, a ho, Yaku has to walk, soon, Yachtak, Kadan, Kati, ya, yes, a clerk to walk Naheku, to J.S. Takati. As my story goes, a long time ago, people used to believe that everything used to talk. One day, crow was walking around the beach looking for something to eat, hungry as usual. He was going around trying to find something to eat. He kept going, kept going, kept going. He couldn't find anything. He finally come to a place where the people pick berries. He went back there to look. Sure enough, boy, there were a lot of blueberries. So he wanted to eat these berries, but then he didn't want anybody to see him. All he had to eat was just berries, so he left his eye, took his eye out and put it on a rock. He told his eye, now, you're the one that's going to guard for me here, and you tell me if a boat's coming. So he went back there to eat. He started eating. Wasn't long, his eye called him, boat coming, boat coming. He went back out there. He rushed out there to see it. It wasn't no boat. It was just a drift log. So he told his eye, there's no boat here. Make sure you see things. So he went back again. It wasn't very long, his eye called him again, boat coming, boat coming. He went out there, this time it's a big log with all the limbs still on it, and that one looked like people to him. And so he really got mad at the eye. Then why you always call me before you make sure you see something? So he took his eye and he bounced it around on the rock, bounced it around like a little rubber ball. And so he went back again to eat some more. This time it was even shorter. Boat coming, boat coming. That eye always lied to me, I'm not going out there. So when he came out, sure enough, it was people. Well, he never come out yet, sorry. And when the people landed, the first thing they saw was, look at this eye. It's something, it must be going to bring us good luck. It's a good luck come to us. So they took that eye and really treated it good and put it up good, put it in feathers. Crow, of course, he's got nothing to do because he's got only one eye. So he went back and looked and he picked one blueberry and put it in place of his eye. And then he went to town and told the people, I hear you people found something's eye. Can I see it? They brought it out, and boy, a nice basket and nice feathers. But as soon as he got a chance, he took his eye and put it back and trying to fly out through the smoke hole. He couldn't fly out. He got stuck there. Crow at one time, he used to be white. But when he got stuck up there, is where he got all smoked up. That's why he's black today. And also, like the human eye today make mistakes because that eye of his was making all those mistakes. And some humans have a blue eye because Crow used a blueberry for his eye. So there's my story about that, about this. And I hear people were talking about by the fire about different things. Well, today, we as a people, we have to try to adapt to the new technology. At one time I was at a meeting, boy, everybody was complaining about too much TVs and too much too much everything is electronic. And finally they come to a laptop. My answer to that was, but laptop we must never, ever let go. Laptop has been around a long, long time. Everybody looked at me, because laptop wasn't introduced that long. I said, this is when you used to sit on Grandma's lap, and she downloaded most of the information. Thank you.
Aklein Ganashtish Lakaradkach. I love hearing the stories. So our Dach Shkashnigi, our next storyteller is Ida Kalmegan from CTFN. Or Ida, sorry, Ida. Okay. I'll run it over. Do you want to tell your story now?
Oh.
Does she want to tell a story? Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah. Do you want to tell your story now? The story.
Can I just sit here?
Yeah, you could sit there. Can we get a mic stand for her? Sure.
Do you want to hold it? I guess hold it.
I'll hold it for now. Or you can hold it. Good.
Tak onkunna chisui yat kat evroho. Achilku oa ha in et katnig nidin e kusigenk ya. Oa you I have to come back in English because I forget some of the words. I wonder where's Sam Johnson. Go so I asked for Sam because I couldn't remember how to say swan. Anybody remember? Cooked. Anyway, you cooked the hot with the kini in yeah and the chutney. I got the thing it could it then hot we could hot as we add targistach. Klede hin. Well, you wouldn't. Shine. Forgive me if I forget my language sometimes. You know, I'm just about 100 years old and I forget things. Anyway, in the springtime, one time, I'm going to convert into English and then I'll try and remember it and think it. In the springtime, when the swans came, this one old man in Tagish town, and he went up on the mountain right above the town, the village, and he was sitting down watching, and the swans came by, and when they were flying by, they were just on the same level as him where he was sitting. And he saw a little man sitting on one of the swans. Must have been a dwarf or something like that. Little man, he was sitting, and they keep right up together. They went down the lake and they parked there. And when he saw where they landed, he went down there, and he was hiding from them. And he saw that little man get off that swan, and he was walking around there, and those swans were eating some kind of leaves and grass and stuff on the shore, and that little man was eating the same thing as them. And he went back to the village and he told his people, there's a little man walking around, he said, and he came in with the swans. He was sitting on them, on one of them. I'm going to set a snare. I'm going to try to catch him, he said. So he went down with his snares and he set them. And by God, he did catch that little man. And when the swans flew away, they left that little man back. And that man took him to their village. And he stayed with them. When he got to the village, he told that man's wife that I can't eat anything with blood in it, he said. You have to just give me green things, green leaves and stuff. So she got busy and picked green leaves and things. And she had berries and stuff stored away too. Anyway, time passed and those guys, a bunch of them went hunting. And they got a moose and they were gone all day, a long hunting trip. And that little man was tired out. He was walking with them too. Anyway, when they came back, that woman said to other people, I'm tired of cooking for that little man. And she said, I'm gonna give him soup, moose soup that I made for my husband. And they told her, you shouldn't do that, you know. He said he can't eat anything with blood in it. And so anyway, that's what she did. These guys came back late at night and they got moose and stuff, and she fed her husband, and all those guys ate. And they offered him some soup, and he said, I can't eat it. Well, just a little bit, they tell him, maybe it wouldn't hurt. Anyway, they coaxed him into eating that little bit of soup, and in the nighttime, he woke somebody up and he was getting sick. And he said, you know, I told you when I came here that I can't eat anything with blood in it. And they said, well, we're sorry, we didn't have anything green to give you. And he said, I'm going to leave you. He said, I'm leaving you. And they felt really bad. They told him not to go. And finally he said, well, I'm not going to go really a long ways away. He said, you're going to see me every once in a while. How? They tell him, how are we going to see you? Well, he said, he showed them the moon was out. He said, when that moon gets full, he said, you're going to see me in that moon, he said. And that's what the old people used to claim, the man in the moon. So next time you see the moon, when the moon is full, you're going to see the man in the moon. That is a story that Grandma used to tell us a long time ago. And it's nice that if you could tell your kids about that and your family. Our grandma used to talk to us about stories and stuff. Not only my grandma, but my dad too. My dad was a good storyteller. He used to tell us stories all the time, and about little things, anything. But you know, after he died, my mom became famous for her storytelling. But in our home, my dad was a storyteller. And they asked me not very long ago, a couple of weeks ago, I guess, they were going to tell stories, and they want me to tell story. I thought the one would be good is that the people come, lots of people come to Tagish, and when the swans come, and it would be nice, I think, if I tell that to the school kids, because, you know, everybody likes to see swans, and I even went down there too. Georgie, my daughter, and you notice that I'm using my walker. About a month ago, a little over a month ago, I guess, I had a stroke. And all my right side just went numb. I couldn't use it, but I can walk now, and I can feed myself. For a while, I wasn't even able to lift my arm up to feed myself. But now I can feed myself, and I can walk. And they gave me a walker, white man legs, I call it. Anyways, I'm glad to have it, and that's what I use to walk around with now. And it was so funny because before I had that, I was able to walk and do everything. And the day I got that stroke, I was sitting on the couch, and I got up to go into the kitchen, and I just took one step and down I went. My son was there, and my husband tried to pick me up, and he called my son. And the two of them really struggled to pick me up, you know.
Can I take a look there? The mic just died. I just need to see here.
I wrecked your machine.
Nope, you're good.
And then I decided to go again, because originally I got up to go to the bathroom, and then they picked me up. I didn't tell them where I was going, so I got up and I took 2 steps, and down I went again. And I was just like a sack of mush. I couldn't move, not even a finger. And my husband told my son to call the ambulance. And I said, no, don't. I said, our neighbor is named Paul. I told him, call Paul and tell him to come. Because I remembered how much they struggled to pick me up. Anyways, in a few minutes, the ambulance came, and there was 3 teenagers in there. And they all came in, and 5 of them tried to move me. And they did move me finally into a stretcher, and then into the ambulance. And we came to White car cross, and the nurse said she's not able to help me, so they have to take me to Whitehorse. And that happened.
Mic swap again.
That happened, and so we went to Whitehorse, and apparently even my face muscles were stiff. When I was talking and stuff, my face was just still on one side, on my right side. And the doctor told me, smile, he said. And I looked at him and I said, I can't smile. Why not? He said, well, I said, I got no teeth. And you should have heard him. He was just a young doctor. Ha, 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 ha. He laughed hard. He laughed so much, I started to laugh too. And then I did more than smile at him. But I found out after that I got to Vancouver, that that's what he was laughing at is my face was stiff and I was worried about my teeth. I left without my hearing aids and my teeth, and I had just pajamas on and no shoes and socks. And they shipped me on a plane like that, little plane, right to Vancouver because they couldn't help me in Whitehorse. 2 days I stayed in Whitehorse and I couldn't even feed myself. So I'm lucky to be walking around now, and I'm sure am thankful to those people in Vancouver how much they helped me and they trained me to help myself. And my kids and my kids and my husband really are helping me now, and everybody. And people just going by on the street and see me struggling around and they stop and help. And that's the way the Yukoners are. They're always willing to help everybody. And I'm really happy to be here today to listen to all of the talk and stuff. And when my mom left and my dad, I was fluent in Tlingit, but it's been a long time since they left, and I'm up in years myself, you know, I'm almost catching up to them. And so I forget a lot of things. Yeah. I told my husband one time a long time ago, like before the Second World War, we had no roads up here. We traveled by boat and we walked. My husband told me to go down to the store one time, and we lived on Alexander Street, and there was a store there just about 2 blocks away, and he wanted me to get something in that. I told him, oh, no problem, I can go and get it. I said, I used to walk lots. Where? He said, you don't even walk to the corner store now, he told me. I told him, I walked to Teston when I was about 5 years old. Go away, he said, I don't believe you. But I did. They were having a big party there and they invited our family, so we went over. And I walked, and my dad got somebody to take us to Tagish. And that big island in Tagish, before you get to Tagish, up in that big lake, there's a big island there. They stopped the boat after they landed there, and we went over the mountain there. We went about over 3 mountains, I guess. And we're going over that first mountain. I was running to keep up to Dad, and here I fell. And I skinned my knees, both of them. And I was sitting there crying and rubbing my knee. And my mom caught up to us and she said, let me look. And so she pulled up my pants and rubbed my knees, and she said, nothing is broken, everything is okay. And she said, don't run so fast, she said. And I said, I don't like to walk around this place. Where do you want to walk? She told me. I want to walk on the sidewalk, I told her. And just before that, a few days before we went on that trip, we went to Whitehorse, and at that time they had wooden sidewalks all over in the city. And that's where I wanted to walk, I told her. And she just laughed at me. Anyways, thank you for listening to me. And I'm sorry, I finished my story and I just spoke a little bit of Tlingit, but I do speak Tlingit. Kuna cheese, just a kid you want.
Ganashish, Shaklake, Shkashnik, a beautiful story. Thanks so much for sharing. And Igua Juan, it's just good to hear the language, even if it's just Chie Gugank a little bit. So Ganashish. So our Naskia Shkashnigi is George Esquero from Taku River Tlingit First Nation. Yeah.
Konnichiwa. I'm George Esquiro, Yund 18 from the Kokatan clan, Taku River. I wasn't totally prepared for telling a story, but just in observing on what's been going on so far, I really like to thank Sam for, I always say that it's really comforting to hear our language spoken, and it makes me want to learn myself. And I just hold out to all these young women that are bringing our language back, and I hope everyone here supports it completely because we really need it. I mean, it's obvious from all the stories we hear that our language is where it comes from. All of our rules and regulations, how we marry, how we raise our children, how when there's a death in the family, how we treat it, it's all the rules and regulations are in our language. And there may be a day where someone like Sam won't have to translate the story he just told, because listening to it and listening to these guys laughing, it made me envious that I couldn't be laughing until I heard the English version. Oh, sorry. I can't hear myself. Oh, wow, what a difference. Okay, I do have a couple of short stories. My mom used to tell us stories all the time, but of course, we were at boarding school, so we're only at home for 2 months out of the year. And that does not give parents or grandparents a lot of time to try and tell us all the stories that we should be hearing in order to carry on our traditions. But one of the things that came to mind when I was asked to tell a story is, I watched a documentary years ago on, I think it was the public channel, and it was a story about the ice age on the West Coast 10,000 years ago. And when they were telling that story in the documentary, they did a rendering of what the coast looked like. And what you saw was a drawing with all these islands, each one of them surrounded by ice and snow, all over the place. And this was in the documentary. And for me, I flash back to years ago when my mother told us a story about our people were living on an island. And they were living and with whatever they can find, whatever animals were on this island to survive with, and getting some, because in the summertime, the ice would recede a little bit, so there would be some waterfront, and they'd be able to fish, and they'd be able to support themselves. And one day when the kids were playing down by the lake, or down by the shore, a moccasin floated up from underneath the ice. So these kids went out, waded out and grabbed this moccasin, and they ran up to the village and told their parents, "Look what we found on the waterfront." And the elders and parents looked at this moccasin and they said, "This isn't ours. Nobody here sews moccasins like this. Where did this come from?" And they said, "Well, it floated out from under the ice." And so they started talking about it, and then they said, "There must be other people somewhere around us. You know, we thought we're the only ones on this island." So they sent out a party to explore out on the ice to see what they could find. So they went traveling out across the ice, this party of people, and they found another island just like theirs. And there were people living on that island, just like them. And it was quite a celebration to find these other people. And so they celebrated that. And then they thought, well, I wonder if there's any more. So then they did that again. They sent people out and they explored over the ice and found more islands. And eventually found basically all of the different people in Southeast Alaska on different islands. And it was pretty eerie to be watching a documentary back in around 1998 or something like that when I watched it, and to see a picture of all these islands during the Ice Age. So if you're wondering why or how long we've been here, we know it's at least 10,000 years. But anyway, the other story that I had has a lot to do with our three nations. Like you all know that we're trying to get back together again and reacquaint ourselves and start living and working together like we did in the past. Well, another story that my mom told us was when she was a little girl, I don't know, maybe about 7 years old, they were preparing for the people from Teslin and Carcross to come and visit in Atlin. And what they did is they put a couple of poles down by the lake and they stretched a hide between the two poles that were all sewn together. They made a great big curtain right across the front of the waterfront. And the people from Teslin and Carcross traveled from where they were through the bush on their trails, carrying their boats with them. They all had skin boats, and they were carrying them with them. And they traveled from Teslin and from Carcross to Atlin. And when they got there, they camped on the far side of the bay, which is on the far side of Atlin, where the town is now, and spent the night there. And the next day, they got into their canoes and they started paddling across the bay toward the village. And all of the Taku people were collected behind the curtain and just standing there. And the people from Carcross and Teslin would paddle and sing as they were crossing the bay slowly. And then they would raise their paddles to the middle of their canoe and bang it on the bottom and shift to the other side and paddle from there until they got across to our side of the bay. And at that time, they stopped just short of landing. And my mom and I'm not sure who the other boy was in from the Taku River Tlingits, came out from behind the curtain and did a welcome dance for the people in the boats as they were just sitting there. And then when they finished, the curtain was dropped and everyone got together and celebrated being with each other. So we were definitely all connected. And then with the way things have gone since then, we've become disconnected to a certain extent. And yet we're more mobile today than we were in the past. And yet we got together more in the past than we're doing today. So I think it's time we turn that around again. Thank you.
Ganashish. I'm happy to be here today. Ganashish for your story, George. I think the beautiful part about story is that each one of us receives a different teaching at the different part we're at in our lives. So our next Shkashnigi, Shkashnigi, the next storyteller is the one and only Keishi Bessie Cooley from Teslin-Tlingit Council First Nations. Click.
Bessie, do you want to just sit there or no? Get up. You don't need that? Okay. There you go.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you for inviting me here and thank you for wishing, I think, to listen to me talk. In Kahasningi, I adakati Hosiku Singit Katwasiku Yuhas Atlaatiki. I won't be speaking to you long because I know that there are other people that wish to speak. Yetsuta tel koseku masaya kokayage yagi inch kahasnigi. This morning I had no idea of what I was going to tell you. Yeah, gone kar et kosa ahi. But when I was outside listening to the other speakers, I thought of what I would be saying. Yeah, kainch kahasningi aktwasi gu had ku when I speak to people like this, I like to speak about my family. Then I know what I'm telling people is true. Qataye dane ku awaye yehas the tian. My parents were trappers. Eskitu yehas dane, and they were also hunters. With Tlachanes Kuyu do a sagwe nanda akada deslingdach. Awe has to on iti husiti. The place called Johnstown up north or south of Teslin is where their camp was. Jesu August Yashina Kishio or the Hasnakuch Yaktin Yaklentin Yexigenke Washin. Towards the end of August, they would leave Teslin and go to Johnsontown with a big boat and a small motor. Take Donna claim has the GA Udeti, and Jotus Yexigenke Washin has the GA Wuti. They did not have much money, and that's why they could buy only a small motor. Sigeri hini, shukwa sigeri hini, akgiwa has a change. It would take 2 days for them to travel to Johnsontown and camp. They would overnight at First Beaver Creek. Achawe nanda kehes kakocht, shukat kache is a danani my tieg. From there, they would travel up to Johnsontown and maybe troll a bit on the way. Historic high, City, Adi. That would be their meals when they would be traveling. Tachanais ko has ayuad lagi awe the kadyeda and has means talk yes. When they got to Johnsontown, they would prepare everything for the winter. Hazati yagi karda oe aye his natich. They would stay there until Christmas. Hot ye has a danenich they will tudach bling to has a has a you would lagi. They would set a net for fish and they would try to hunt to get some meat too. Yet ik kusti oye has a dane and the called Sagutu ye has a dane. Life was hard for them there, but they also had some good times. In has a canik where Hazati yagi at Kuahai. The Katia the Hoa or the Kukandag. They told me that when it came to be Christmas time, people would gather there in Johnsontown from all over. Atlein dach nitlesin hini dach Gushagudes Gojai dachtu. People would come from Atlin, from the Nesutlan River, from Wolf Lake. They all traveled on foot, and some had, I guess everybody had dog teams. That's how they traveled. They just traveled on foot because in those days there was no such thing as skidoos. And even if there was no price for it anyway. Didn't have the price to buy one. Hazati yagi at Kuahai, the cut our Kate at and they would get there by dog team at Christmas time. Claye has the canik with shot what the way a dead key. Yet to gay or dead key to canay hostel has the tinge with shawet. Mom said that when they got there, the young women would look after the small children and the babies. Kisani the Kate has a teenage, Jamasa Yakuge. But the young men would be looking after the dogs, no matter how many there were. They would feed them, tie them up, and make sure they had water, everything. So, Sunday I couldn't teach it. People would spend 2 weeks there. Because the cut gone with the Sunday Khana for the 2 weeks that the people were there, every night they had a dance. when yen wat hasoa has a lech need. So gonna hit has a done each too. But the grown-ups were the ones that had the fun and they did the visiting. Tilje has a yes gene to yen wat. The adults didn't do any work for the 2 weeks that they were there. They were well looked after, well fed, and just relaxed. What R&R you do a soggy that? I guess they're called R&R or rest and relaxation today. So, I do go out to you at the tea too. Oh, yeah, I wish things were like that again. Because you just, or you cannot give it's about this time of the year that people would go to beaver hunt. So yeah, has the house cut Kate has uzadi the king tinye. Yeah, has a done nature cake. And if at this time of the year, it was beaver hunting time. And they still use their dogs, but the dogs had packs on them. So, and they still walked all over. Claw to issue a Canadian. My mom had a story about her dad. Who took a plane at good. Go try you do a sock. My grandpa, Shai or Shorty Johnston, he would go hunting by himself to Cledahino, to Yana Goodio at Dawson, to do Ayateen Chaka. As he was walking along one day, he noticed, oh, there's a spot down there, kind of a bare spot. And so it's just a yard yakati at Uwagut, the critique. Because he noticed that, he walked over to the edge and just looked around. Just, I'm sitting. Well, what's you Yana name? As he was about to leave, he noticed some bushes down below starting to move. I tried to Altin. Altinio to go seek and then at Edach, dark good. As he was watching, there was a black bear come out around the bush. And he was eating soap berries that had come out. And at Booty, you can't be Tanachik. And then Grandpa thought, I guess that's what's happening there. So so he turned to Yagado to Sitin Suk let's eek. Wunuk. Just Huckley was a tade, Dakuanuk. Grandpa noticed as he was going to leave that the bear had sat down, but he kind of wiggled his way under the berry bushes. Grandpa was watching and watching. Jagada seek was to the ke ua hut. Soon the bear pulled some of the bushes or branches over, and Lingiti Yahawe got a tate all what was he? Just like a human. He was sitting under these berry bushes, and then the bear started pounding like that on the bushes, and some of the berries were falling on the bear's belly. And when that happened, the bear looked down, thought he had enough on his belly, I guess, so he started squashing the berries. A kadad, he started mixing them like that. And Mom said the berries just foamed up like a human would do. And once he got quite a bit of foam on his belly and on his paw, he just started licking it off. And Yawaka Hado Uski in hot our goody. Tis a hin ka in kahanigi, Gehana ka hot goody. He said, boy, I wish somebody was with me. He said, nobody is going to believe me when I tell them this story when I get back to camp tonight. So, Jatlako ye at ganit. Yet equal Christi and Sigu to ye dadine. And that's the way it always was with our people. Life was hard maybe, but they had good times too. So, ye oi inch kakavni, gonna teach Rakadin sa Hiltakatyuman, gonna teach. That's my story for you, and thank you all for listening to me. Gonna teach.
Hello, everyone. So, Ganeshish Keishi. So amazing of a story. It was just really making me happy. I think it's time for us to have a little break. Maybe about 10 minutes and we'll be back. Okay, so 10 minutes. So welcome back to the circle, everyone. I just want to take the time to say a big Ganesh Achlain to our cooks, if we could give them a round of applause. I'm happy I have a dress today. So I'd like to take the time to introduce the children of the Taku Society. I'm going to pass it over to Gaetica.
Gaetica Jack, I am the executive director of the Children of the Taku Society. And so I have some notes here so that I don't talk forever, because I know I only have 10 minutes, and in order to be concise, I always need to have notes. So we are so grateful to be here today, and just really honored to be able to be invited to tell some stories in Tlingit that we are currently learning in a beginner immersion classroom. And so the Children of the Taku Society is currently focused on creating a fluency transfer system that is a curriculum, a sequential curriculum, and a very specific accompanying methodology. And so our work is really to try to create new speakers all the time, and that's the majority of what we're focused on every single day. I have some of my team here, as well as some of our students from our classroom who were just all very nervous. I'm even nervous standing here speaking in I'm nervous to be standing here and just speaking at all. And so I've heard from every one of our cohort here that they're all also very nervous. We're here telling stories alongside our language mentors. And so Keishi and Anachlahash have just so graciously been recording with us for years in order to help us to create this curriculum. They really are the authors of our textbooks. And so Ganesh Chish for allowing us to be here and tell the stories that they were willing to create beginner versions of our Tlingit stories. And so when we first started recording with them, we would go and say, hey, can you help us to tell this story in Tlingit? And they would tell us this really beautiful, complex, advanced version. I'd be like, well, could it be any easier? And they'd be like, yeah, okay, I guess so. And then they'd tell it again, and I'd be like, even easier? And then they would help us out. And now we have, this is the textbook that we just graduated from. It has 15 beginner Tlingit stories, and some of our students are here, and our teachers and instructors as well are here to tell those stories. And we are going to be sharing not only the stories and telling them in Tlingit, but we're also going to be sharing some of the illustrations that were created originally for these stories by some generous artists as well up on the screen. And so I'm going to go through a little bit of what that's going to look like, because for us, yeah, we're very much beginner speakers. So please be gentle with us. There will be many mistakes, and we're just, we're just trying to stand up here and be courageous in our very baby versions of the stories. In Tlingit. Huh? Oh, okay. And so I just wanted to, this is also why I shouldn't have notes, they just distract me. And so I just wanted to speak a little bit about my own experience really quickly, in that the 3 areas of work that I've mostly done in my life are childcare, working in daycares, And I have done some law revitalization, and I've done Tlingit language revitalization. And so I've always been so lucky to be able to do this work of revitalizing the traditional ways of our ancestors. And I have found that stories are such an essential piece of each of those areas of work. And so in our law revitalization work, the stories were the focus and in drawing out our traditional laws. And in this language work, this textbook has been just the most inspiring piece of work that we've managed to create so far for our students to be able to learn. And we're just at the beginner level, but in hearing Anach Lahash tell his story as an advanced birth speaker, I was able to understand so much of what he was saying. I could pick up the gist of the majority of the story, and I could tell when there was a funny moment, you know, that little eye being punished for saying that there was a yak away. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was able to understand that the work that we're doing is really to create new speakers, and that we're just at the beginning stages of that. And we are starting to create intermediate materials now. The stories are a foundational part of that. And so we're very grateful to be here. And we are going to be telling these stories in Tlingit first, with the illustrations that will be on the screen. And then we'll go through in English afterwards, which was actually just something we just happened to decide to do. Just you saw us in our little conversation over here. We were like, oh, let's make sure that we tell the English version afterwards. And all of our students actually said, well, we don't really know exactly what the story is in English. We only know it in Tlingit. And so there might be a little bit of chaos in between where we're passing along our textbook where we have the English in here. In our classroom, it's all in immersion. And so we are so focused on speaking in Tlingit only that we sometimes don't even realize we would have to be retranslating back to English in order to be able to tell the story in English. So, and one last thing is that we do have a website where all of this curriculum is available for free. And when we were asked to come and talk about that curriculum a little bit during this storytelling gathering, we said, well, could we come and tell stories instead? And so we're hoping maybe in the fall time when there's a bigger gathering, we'll have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the curriculum and how it works. And ideally, you'll hear from a few more of our students and we'll be telling stories as well. But if you're curious or interested in anything that we're working on, please come and find me, and we can definitely set up a conversation, and I can let you know what our email address is, and as well the website where all of our curriculum is available on there for you to download anytime. So, Ganesh Chish, Ingewine.
Ganesh Chish, if everyone could give a round of applause. As you can see, I'm a part of that group. I did a little outfit change. So Klagu, wow. So I'd like to introduce Kinchei. She'll be telling our first story, and that'll be Chik Shawat Shkashnik.
Hat Kusigang. Ganesh Caitlin O'Shea, Gleika Gainach, Yuchaduasauk, Kinchei is it my name in my classroom. I guess I'm just gonna get started. I do want to say thank you to the teachers. I didn't ever expect to see myself to be able to read language, let alone understand it. So I'm really excited to share a story with you today. Hit Shawat Shkashnik. Naske Nachka Wushkikian Aya Kudziti. Yahunku A Dedach Has Awasha Ya kiki a ku a dlut idach atwugut. Hitch ayu auk yach sitin. Oh. We hitch ach sinuk. Kedain adayu akulkin idach. Ooh. Cha kugeyi adat at shuk. Ha ha ha. We hitch ku a tle shawat busiti. We hitch ku a tle awasha. Da 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 da. Ku ihi kade ya kunehen. We hunki a sheye de hen has da la uhu yes has du shat has dach wuhliehi at. We kiki a ku a kle dasa duji. We hitch du shat hukam du a shuk ha 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 ha. Da sakshe hande akwati. We hitch du shat ku a de huch awa huch hago. We has du shat has at dugu has aswug. Nagu we at dugu kachakde ha atla a. Wuninach ku a yenasne. We at dugu kachakde hat amsliat. We kuihi it kuaha. We hunki a has la uhu yis has duji at sheye de hen. We la uhu da ahu klech nel has amtliat. We kik a yiga cha ye atyati. We la uhu yis da ahu klech nel amtliat. We hitch du shat dach wuhli echi at. Idach du ya ayam du ane. Huchawe. Thank you. And for the English version, I'll just go sentence by sentence. There are 3 men that are brothers. The older brothers were married, but the younger brother was single. He saw a frog along the edge of a pond. He picked up that frog. He inspected it carefully. Carelessly, he laughs about it. But just then, that frog turned into a woman. He married that frog. The time for the potlatch is coming. Those older brothers' wives made many things for their potlatch gifts. But that younger brother doesn't have anything. That frog, his wife, was laughed at. What might she bring here? That frog, his wife, called her husband over though. Hago. Those wives of theirs are scraping hides. Go to those stacked hides, bring them here. Do it sneakily though. He brought that stack of hides. The time for that potlatch came. Those older brothers have a lot of things for potlatch gifts. They crawled around like worms at home for their potlatch gifts. Those potlatch gifts they brought in big bundles. Things are just waiting on that younger one. For those potlatch gifts he brought in big bundles. The things that his wife, that frog, had made. After that, she was respected. Ganeshtish.
Ganeshtish, that was amazing. Shlakudzi, awesome. First thing I learned when I started learning Tlingit was all the slang words. Gotta grab my heen. So I'm ETA, I'm next. And I'm Sky to from Teslin Tlingit Council. Okay. You okay away? Gaat lagay. Yes, Lou. Yes, okay. Okay, jag jag yes, yes, du idjan uha. Kleuk dacha kawaha. Hot du tawasagu uachai. Heen gedewugu. Ach yut a kawachit. Du walk a kawashat. Yes, du wage ten you gewetan. Ke ich jauk yisatini. Du wage kutis. Yes, ach wugut. Jauk, ke u ich duage. Yes, ke en jechich. Oh, na ha shadi uwe. Oh, tis jauk uwe. Yes, yes, ach wugut. Jauk, ke u ich duake. Yes, tsu kenjechich. Tis jauk uwe. Yes, chant uanug. Yes, ach wugut. Jauk, ke u ich duake. Yauk oe yeyeti. Oh. I'm sitting. Screwing me up with the video on the team. Jeez. Yes, tish kewu sheikh. Whoa. Yauk oe yeyeti. Yauk. Weislinget. Weislinget. Has am sitin duage. Ooh. Guna at wage. Ooh. Weislinget. Has a kawati duage. Yes. Yes. Kuch wadagat. Yes. Duwagi kut a kawahich. Gusue wagi. Yes. Duwagi kut a kawahich. Wagi. Wagi. Yes. Du tawu yanik. Yes, kleinach wuti. Yes, wugach, wugach. Yes, yanagat. On iti am sitin. Chan gukt wadug. Sisa hit. Sisa hit. Yade kewich. Sisa hit. Yes, sisa. Shawat Shan ade am sitin. Oh. Yes, kewa wuz. Yisitingi achwage. Shawat Shan. Shawat Shan. Niade keuich ech. We slinget hastu jiwu iwag. Guna iwagi chachletzin. Yes, sisa hit uagat. Yes, kain yuchewatan. We ka duwage dujentakt a katin. Yes, duwage kuch a kawati. Yes, duwage tin, or yes, duwage kuch a kawati. Dechwak. Gan woosli awu. Yes, kem da ken. Sisa hit ke kamlik is. Dechwa kut wudekain. Yes, tzilk tunach wudekain. Ach aya Tuch Yahwuti. Hooch away. I'm one of the people that didn't know the English for my story. So, Crow was hungry. Oh, I guess I could say that. The title of the story, I just had a part 1 and a part 2. It was The Crow Lost His Eye. So, Crow was hungry. He ate round berries. He wanted to eat fish. He walked to the mouth of the river. He grabbed his eyes. He pulled them out. Crow talked to his removed eyes. Shout when you see a boat. His eyes watched steadily. Crow walked away. Boat, his eyes shouted. Crow ran back. It was a drift log. That is not a boat. Crow walked away. Boat, his eyes shouted. Crow is running again. That is not a boat. Crow was angry. Crow walked away. Boat, his eyes shouted. Crow did not run. There was a boat. The people saw his eyes. Some strange thing's eyes. Crow returned. His eye was lost. Crow's eye was lost. Crow was sad. Crow was alone. Crow cried. Crow is walking. He saw a camp. He sat by the fire. He saw an old woman there. Did you see my eye? Asked Crow. She pointed to a tent. Yes, those people have your eye. Your eye is precious. Crow walked to the tent. He talked to the someone, a man. Crow's eye was in the palm of the man's hand. Crow took his eye. He put his eye back in his head. There was a smoke hole in the tent. Crow flew up. He got tangled in the tent. Finally, he flew away. Crow flew through the smoke. This is why he became black. Hooch away. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience for the in-between. So it's kind of awkward me telling a story, but I wanted to share that with you today. So our next storyteller is Les Johns from Carcross Tagish First Nation.
Hello, my name is Les Johns. Probably everybody knows me. I'm amazed at these stories these young women have told. Anyhow, it's good. Myself, I don't speak the Tlingit language because being raised in a white society, living with white, my stepfather was white and my mother quit talking to, I guess, because it wasn't right for her to talk to us and him not understand. And I don't know any stories. I've heard them, but the young mind didn't agree with the stories at the time, I guess. At my bedtime stories, my grandmother didn't speak English, but she died when I was 10 years old. So, since then, there was no more talking. And my grandmother is the same grandmother as Ida. We're cousins. We're one family. Sometimes we don't agree with each other. But the story I'm going to tell you is about modern days. When I was 12 years old, my uncle had an outfitting business. So at 10 years old, or 12 years old, I went on the hunt as a horse wrangler. Big money them days. But I just grew up in that side of living. And Art was 11 years older than I am. He took me under his wing, and because my mother taught me to cook, and he couldn't cook. So I traveled with him most of my years as hunting season, when hunting season came along. So the story I'm going to tell you is we moved camp. So we had to build a new camp at Johns Lake. And there was 5 of us. There was Art, Darrell Beatty, Clifford Billy, Charlie Smith, and me. So Art took the hunter. He was from Bend, Oregon. His name was Frank Bandy, I remember that. And he went after sheep. But us guys said, he asked us, what do you guys want to bring back? So we told him moose cuts. So he took off, and Charlie, he was the carpenter had a hammer, an axe, saw, and that was it. So we built a tent frame. After he got all the poles cut and everything, he wanted to see how square it was. So there was Darrell at one corner, Charlie at another corner, Clifford Billy at one, and me at the other one, all holding the corners to see if it was square. Fit, perfect. Clifford Billy had a little bit of a speech impediment. So he says, after everybody's standing there holding it, and who's gonna nail it, he says. There's nobody left. So anyhow, we all put it down, and Charlie, he presumed to nail it together, and he had everything built. So we built a tent frame, and Art came back that night with the moose cuts and the hunter. The hunter wouldn't eat them though, but we did. And that's a short story. Not like other guys.
Goodness, sheesh. That was a nice story. I'm so happy this afternoon just to be around you all, and such an honor to witness this all today. It's truly a moment I'm so happy to be a part of. So I guess we'll go on to have one more story, and then we'll go for a short break. So the next storyteller will be John Williams from TRT-FN. So if you, perfect.
Hello? Goodness, my name is John Williams. I'm very proud to be here. My elders are here on the Cocoton side. TJ and George Esquero are my direct elders, and James Williams is my direct elder from my father's side, and many of these ladies are related to me. I used to speak my language when I was born. I used to interpret for my grandmother and her husband. But I went to residential school, and they did a really good number on me. So I can't somehow lost it all. I tried to learn it, but to do the thing that they did to me still comes back and bothers me. So I will try, keep trying. And I got ladies like Casey. She helped me in learning my family and who's my family and building a family tree. And I hope one day to speak it again and to learn it. Other than that, I used to, my Uncle TJ, when they told me we were going to speak, I told him I didn't know what to speak about. But I said, you don't really want me to speak because you don't know the man that taught me. And his name was Kenneth Keish, or Edward Jack. He taught me quite a bit. And all I could say is, go forward. Don't look back. They can't hurt you anymore. Goodness cheese.
So to Ade Chatna'u Gushi, we can't have a break. I just got the word. We're almost there though. So yeah, just something important to mention is that due to COVID, we could only have a small group today. But the second event will be much bigger, where we can include a lot more people. So we're just grateful that you can all make it today. And yeah, we're just encouraging all the virtual participants that there will be a bigger one in the future. So I want to invite the next storyteller. And that will be Alice Carlick from TRT-FN. It's not here? Okay, well, thank you for letting me know. So we'll go forward, and James Williams from TRT-FN. Perfect. Gonna sheesh.
Kiruda, James Williams, TRT member. I was told a lot of stories, and the elders always told me, one day it'll open up like a book in front of you. And when you tell that story, you tell it the way I tell it to you. I don't add no names. I don't put James Williams in there, or Colleen, or any one of your names in there. And I asked the elder, I said, well, why is that? He said, because if you do, you start lying about your culture. He said, we do not hold people up in a special way. We hold everybody the same because we are all the same. We're all Tlinkits. He said, nobody's better than anybody else. So I've always stuck to that, and I hope I've done it. Maybe I haven't. But please forgive me, because that's our culture. We're all the same people. We're no different from one another. But I'll tell you a little story about my sister and her husband. They just got married. They went across the tourist channel on the small island. And mother and Dad, I guess they got supper ready or told them to go on out, go fishing or go look for porcupine or rabbit. And Dickie and Mary, off they went. And they were gone for about 2 hours. And finally they coming home, and Mary had one side of the paws and the other side, Dick had the other side, porcupine. They were dragging it along. And they said as they got up on the shore, off the boat and onto the shore and grabbed this porcupine, the porcupine started walking with them. I guess he didn't kill it very well. But so there they were going up the hill to the campfire and the porcupine walking with them. So that's one short little story. And Jackie Williams, the oldest brother of our family, he's always told, well, he came into the store when we had the store, and he told my wife here, Colleen, he said, you take a look at Monarch Mountain, wintertime. It's all white, frosts all the way through all the trees. He said, you keep an eye on that. He said, when you start seeing the trees turning black, it's like a thermometer goes up. He said, by the time the whole mountain was black, he said, 2 days later you'll have warm weather. And it does work. How did he know this? He's lived on this land and all over there. And I guess nature taught them that you watch things and these things do happen. And I often wondered why Jackie would say, respect everything that is around you. Because they'll teach you something. Nature will. The animals will. So we got a lot to learn, a little time to do it in. So we can keep on passing it on to the generations that are coming. And I think this is why we like the oral history more than the paper we write it on. So hopefully we will keep on growing with this type of stuff because we need it. The elders always said, go over here and build a brush house. Go over there, build another brush house. I said, why? Well, that way you can show the government that's the land that we use. She said, right now, nobody believes you because you don't have anything anywhere. So to tell the story about our cabin up on the trap line, which is in the park, I was in the store again. And the park ranger from, I think it was Haynes that came. He said, we're coming down to look at your cabin that's in the trap line. I said, yeah, go ahead. He said, boy, you're easy. I said, well, I don't want to fight with you. I said, I'm just go ahead and look at it. So he goes off and he comes back and he says, how come so many outbuildings? And not only that, he says, how come the cabin is a 24 by 20 when it should have been, I think it was 12 by 16 trapper cabin? I said, well, I had my Indian tape out and I read 16. He said, well, how did you get 24? I said, well, my thing said 20. And I said, we needed all the outbuildings because I said, if you don't know my family, I said, I call my younger brother Philip and tell him to bring his family out to the cabin. I said, then I'd have to build in a bay because there's so many of us. He says, you can't do that. I said, well, watch me. But anyway, we did settle with the government that the trap line is now, that cabin is now protected. And we use it and we leave it open to the public so that if anybody gets caught in rough weather, or pardon me, the first year we had that cabin built, my brother Philip was out burning the brush up around the cabin, and he said all of a sudden about half a dozen skidoos showed up, and one guy was soaking wet right through. But Philip had made a big fire in our new cook stove that we didn't know how to run. And he said it was so damn hot in the house, he had to go outside and build fire, burn the brush. And the guy came and Philip told him, go in the house, take all your damn clothes off, dry them off. He said, we won't be bothered to coming in there to see you. And that's the first year we had the cabin that actually saved the guy's life, because he would have had to travel all the way back to Atlin in -30 weather while they were out skidooing. But in the 20 years that we've had the cabin up, we had one steel frying pan stolen, and that was it. And right to this day, this cabin is open for anybody to use. The only rule we have is we come along, you move out, we move in. Thank you.
Ganashish, Auckland, Ganashish. So the next storyteller we have is Marilyn Jensen from CTFN. But just a friendly reminder that we'll be launching a project website for these events. It is currently in the works and should be live by the end of the month.
All right. Ganashish Chakat Yuhan. Thank you all for inviting me today. When Jessie invited me, I said, I'm not an elder. And she sent me back an email and laughed and said, I know, you don't have to be an elder to tell some stories. So I'm going to attempt to speak some Tlingit. This is a safe place, and it's so beautiful to hear the language from both our elders and from the young people as well. It's so amazing. So Yadaltin Yulhat du Asauk, Ka Duzle, Ka Shawat Gu. I don't know how to say slave. How do you say slave? Sam, how do you say slave? What did you say? Oh, husband, yeah. Besides husband. Go. Okay, Shawat Go. That was the name that was given to me by Edwill John Jr., who is the Hitsati of Killer Whale Chasing Seal House from Angoon. And when we had my mom's potlatch, that was my name that he gave me. Ah, woman slave. Shawat Go. Go. Shawat Go. Ah, okay. And then Duzle is my Tagish name, which I got when we had the potlatch for Uncle Jeff and for Coley. My mom said, you earn names at certain points. Tlingit people don't have like 36 names like some of our friends from other nations have. So as your life moves forward, we gain names. All right, so Daklawedi Ayahat. Daklawedi Nahatsiti, Deshitan Yadi, Ayahat, Natasahin, Ka Tagish, Kwandak, Ayahat. So my name is Marilyn, my English name is Marilyn, and first of all, I just wanted to acknowledge all of our beautiful elders here. Ganashish, thank you for all your love, for your support. So many of you, as I look around the room, I consider people who have raised me, helped raise me. I see my beautiful family. I remember me and Karen snuck out and Les caught us when we were teenagers. Got home right now. I look over, I see Ida, and I see Bessie, and I see all of our beautiful elders, the younger ones, Barb and Pearl. Our beautiful elders from Teslin, Edna. I ran around with your kids here in Carcross. And Mark, who I've always considered to be a young elder with lots of wisdom. So I just wanted to start off by saying, storytelling is something that has been such an amazing part of our life, a really integral part of our lives. And when I think back to my childhood, all I can think about is laughing. People just, telling stories, funny stories, which I would call like kind of comical modern day stories, family stories, you know, all those stories that we have that exist in our family, have been there for a long time. It's one, I'm going to share one of those with you today. And then, you know, the beautiful classicals. I remember hearing Louise Prophet LeBlanc one time say, we have our own, you know, like Greek mythology, except ours are Tlingit and indigenous from the Yukon. And there are those big, big stories that tell us about things, important things, like how light came into the world, for an example, how fish came into the lakes, how Raven got black because he used to be white, and how goofy Raven is. You know, it's really interesting that Raven is so noble, that he has such a lofty purpose. He created the world. He helped create the world. But at the same time, he's so crazy and goofy. And he tells us what not to do, too, right? He tells us how not to be sometimes, too. And I remember, you know, all of you know that one of my best friends and mentors in this whole world is Ingrid from Teslin. She's Kokoton, so she's my opposite. And my mom always used to say to me, that's why you girls work so good together, because you're opposites. You're wolf and she's crow, my mom used to say to us. And Ingrid used to tell me lots of funny stories that her mom told her, Mabel. And one of them was about Raven, you know, because we would often talk about Raven teaches us what not to do too. And she said, Raven's usually always really preoccupied with, like, he wants to be really elevated status in society. He wants to, you know, be really known for his good speaking, and he's also hungry. He likes food. And then of course, he likes pretty girls too, right? So these are kind of the things that take Raven away from his really important work. And Ingrid's mom told her this story once where she said Raven was going to a potlatch, and he's like, this is my chance. I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to tell the most beautifulest speech ever that anyone ever heard, ever. And they're just all going to, then they're going to know how great I am. And so anyway, he got to the longhouse and he looked down and he's like, Ulgan oil. So his beak just went in there, and Ingrid goes, he's like, just eating it up. But anyway, here it was melted pitch. So they're like, now Raven's gonna tell his story. And here his beak was stuck together. So he's like, he couldn't tell his story and he couldn't be cool. So there's those stories that tell us not to be, how not to be. And then of course, all the stories, you know, from around the Yukon that everybody knows. Like for an example, the Trondok people have a lot of stories about when settlers came and what that was like. Us here too, in this community, because we were one of the first communities to experience the settlers and the prospectors coming in during the gold rush. And so this story kind of relates to that. I'm going to tell you, my mom, for those of you who knew my mom, all of you knew my mom, she was an amazing storyteller. And her stories were funny. Like she focused on the comical stories, right? That was her thing. And a lot of those stories were about when they were kids here in Carcross, running around. Oh, Leslie, I thought you were going to tell that story about when he didn't want to be saved. Leslie and many others, probably Edna and Ida and many others they were kids here all together, and they had lots of adventures. One of the things that, you know, amazingly, tourism's been rocking in Carcross for a long time, and it's because of the train coming in. So Mom had a lot of stories about when they were kids, and how she said she said it exactly like this: we used to hustle the tourists. Which means they had their own little enterprises going, their own little businesses. And some of those businesses were selling rocks. You know, they just go pick up a rock and sell it to the tourists. She said, just hundreds of tourists got off that train. And she goes, and they were just old. Like, they could barely walk, but here they were up in the Yukon, you know, this big, crazy adventure. And they were so, like, enthralled in love with these kids, these little Indian kids of Carcross. And Mom said, so we sold them rocks, and we also charged them to take pictures of us. So they had this really good, just making a lot of money. My mom said my pockets were just full of money all the time. They had this really good enterprise going on. She goes, but one day, Hazel Good's dad found a bear cub. Oh, they used to bring their huskies too, right? The dogs, they used to bring their huskies, and that was a big, thing for the tourists. She goes, so one day, Hazel Good came down to their, where they met the tourists down by the train, and here she had a bear cub. And Mom said, all their business, just over to that bear cub. So the rest of the kids were just standing there going, great. So my mom goes, so I had to diversify. I had to think, what can I do now? And she said a few times she got to go into Grandpa Patsy Henderson's lecture. He actually had a lecture in the depot, and he would talk about, the culture, and he would sing them songs, and he would wear his regalia. Some of you probably have seen pictures. There's lots of pictures of him doing that. And Mom said she was allowed to go in once in a while. And she said, I think it was because Grandpa was Duckloady, and this is how he wanted to teach some of the kids, the Duckloady kids. They were allowed to come in and listen. So she said, so I knew that Grandpa Patsy made a big deal about Skookum Jim, Quiche, and the story of how they found the gold. So I knew those tourists were really interested in him and Skookum Jim. So when they all came out of that lecture, Hazel was over there with her bear cub. She goes, so I went over to them and said, hey, does anyone want to visit Skookum Jim's gravesite? And it's so bad. It's so bad. It's like, Mom, didn't you know you were supposed to take tourists to the graveyard? So anyway, she gathered a bunch of them up, collected their money, and then they went walking across the bridge with my little mom in front of them and a big group of tourists. And she said, Grandma was looking out the window going, what the hell is tourists doing now? She had all these tourists. Anyway, so she took them down there, and so that was her new little venture, Skookum Jim grave tours. And it was so funny when she told us that, because we all know how fundamentally wrong that is. And she said, her mother, my grandma Agnes, was like, Doris, why do you have so much money all the time? She was doing laundry. Why do you have so much coins and money all the time? And because she started making, she said, real money when she started the Skookum Jim grave tour. And she said, oh, Mom, those tourists, they just like to give us money and we sell them rocks and we get paid. But she said, it would be it would be really cool if someone could find all those pictures that those tourists took of the kids of Carcross, because they must be all over the world, right? And just to see the kids and what they were doing. So that's a good example of a modern story, one that exists within our little family, and that really, really makes me think of my mom. And I call that whole series of stories that she talks about when they were kids as The Adventures of Guna, because she was mischievous. They're always having lots of fun. So anyway, that's all I wanted to share with you today. And so Ganeshish, thank you all for letting me be here with you. Thank you.
Ganeshish. Ganeshish Yadelton? Yadelton. I love learning people's names, so I'm going to start calling you by that. So just before we move on to the next story, I don't know about you guys, but so if we could all stand up, take a little, I've just recently learned how to stretch in Tlingit Yucatangi, so stand up if you can. So first we'll stretch our feet, our kos, shkendeik, kos. It's singular, but I don't know how to do plural. And then shkendeik jin. Shkendeik tuk. I don't know about you guys, but my dickie. Back. Shkendeik hus. your stomach. Ugh, I don't really know how to stretch that. But okay, and canoe. So the next story that we have is Neishle Tuatzin, and she's going to be telling us Yesh Kagan Eat Anachat Awatish Gashnig.
Sheesh. Nesla Tutsin, you had to asak, Kokatan, Chasati, Achlen Kwan. That's I lived in the past. Lived in Atlan, from Atlan. Let's put it on slideshow. View slideshow. Technical difficulties, one moment.
Just if we're going to pause for 1 second, I just want to mention and give a props out to our virtual audience because they're still here with us, and give another round of applause for them. And just a reminder to, so just the COVID Safe 6, so that's Klech Dis Kushliat I Wushtach Yi Nati, at the length of one moose from each other. And also, Ijin Na'uz, wash your hands. Those are the only 2 of the 6 I know how to say in Tlingit. So, okay, Yake?
Jag ewa, Sidakat Yaklat, Kakam Jaqaid. Kashad Hani Klein Nas Kuch Dujiwu. Ach, Yandakin Yesh. Yesh we shall what he nach dadaus. Yesh getra schwudlier. We shall what in hin the nach look. Took an our Tukane klauk yana wat. Tukane gach. Tukane nas kuk du tuasiku. Yakashada honey du da chunk du jit amsi in we cook. Klech kwanadau kien tanjik. We at Ertsku, not a hawatan. We could kana ha ku awu yikde kedach completes is. We could kana ha dach shaklake. Ooh, We at Ertsku chakut a cook to tuasiku. Ya kasha da hanich akut akuk du jit amsiin. Klech kwanadau kien tanjik. We at Gatsku, not a hawatan. We at Gatsku in this kuzu. We disk selk gana woosh. Gan woof nach kekawkech. We dis wootlik de ke completes is. We dis shachla gay. Ooh, We at Gertskuch ut a cook du tuasigu. Yesu chukech. Gach. We ya kasha da hanich akut akuk du jit amsiin. Klech kwanadau kain tanjik. We atki atsku zu yech wusiti. We yech ku not a hawatan. Oh, cook not a. Yes, cook not a hawatan. Wekakan kua atudah yewuni. Ach aya wekakan des ka kutkanaha kumziti. Huchowe. Nachchish.
Ganashish Neslet Uetzin. So I have a very, very important announcement. I'm moving to Juneau this fall. And Yisa Yesh Ka Kukashi. I'm looking for a new crow man. So just put the word out there, send it all to your Juneau peoples. Anyways, the next story is Kashlaksha. Kashlaksha. Slitsini Kosh Gashnik.
Achtuk iatin itwasigu. Quick, can I? I'm gonna move this slide Oops, how do you do this? Yake iqsatini sadaqat yuhan. Qashlaksha yukhadwasak. Midori yukhadwasak. Akhuk Peter ka dutla Anna Williams Kinkashi ka du Silk Mrs. Elizabeth Nyman Seidaya Yuduwasak. City. I guess that's all I can say. It's great to see my husband's family, uncle, auntie, and his cousin. I think Kinche, she left already. Anyways, I'm so nervous. Sletini ka shkashnik. Ue shkashnik kusigink ka sweet. Shikuzi, shiku. Okay. Kashan kuziti. Shaklike sik du jiwu. Nask ka kuziti. Claire, der, nask ka. Shukwa aka du ish hande ugut. Aktua sigu isik hwashai yuyawaka. Saksleich yuyawaka du ish. We shakakte as yenau. Shukwa aka shakakte ugut. Teshkuchudagut. Ishan. Dacha aka du ish hande ugut. Aktua sigu isik huashai yuyawaka. Saks layech yuyawaka du ish. Dacha ka shakakte ugut. Telkuchu de gut. Ishantu. Nask aka du ish hande ugut. Aktuasigu isik huashai yuyawaka. Saks leyer yuyawaka du ish. Nask aka Latin. Tledushu u du jiu. Naski aka shakakte ugut. Saks amlier. Yakajane. Shayadahani atkutu adi awajak. Klejisk, derjisk, naskjisk. And kukudegut. Du ish yeyawaka. Kunakyak eka awe wae. Naskiaka ka isik, dusik, awasha, dan 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 dan. Sorry, Sladakatka has to do yak a kanashtish. Which way? Oh, okay. Okay. So this was a story about the strong man. I hope I was able to explain that with my action. So there was an old man, and I actually wanted to lie about this story. I wanted to say, Kashang Kuziti, and say, Anyaslagash do you do wasak? But Uncle James said I shouldn't lie, so I didn't. He had a beautiful daughter. There were 3 men. The first man went to her father. I want to marry your daughter, he said. Make a ball, said her father. Use trees from that valley. The first man walked to the valley. He did not return. The second man went to her father. I want to marry your daughter, he said. Make a ball, said her father. The second man walked to the valley. He did not return. The third man went to her father. I want to marry your daughter, he said. Make a ball, said her father. The third man was strong, and I lied here that I said he had 6 packs, but I don't know the fact. The third man walked to the valley. He made a ball, and he killed many animals. And I lied again. I said 1 just moose, 2 moose, 3 moose. Sorry. He came back to the village. You are a really good man, said her father. The third man married his daughter. Everyone was happy. The end.
Goodness, geez. Every time we hear those stories, they get more interactive and funny, and I'm just laughing away over here. So the next story is Kudeshiuch, and she's telling Dien Shkashnik.
Yakayach Satini Kudeshiach Yuchot Dwasauk Dien Shkashnik. Oh. Okay. Oh, clink. Okay, so we don't have any images, so you're going to have to watch me act it out, and then I will say it in English. Goodness, geez. Dien yuduasagusha kudziti. Du klar ka du ish tish kusti. Ach klar gusue. Ach ish kek. Tesh ka tua ushku. Oh, dien, klek, ach tua ushku. Dien akde kamduana. Dien gukde. Dien akde kamduana. Echt wusiti. Shayedeheni tauk kanaach kua'u. Oh, wekasha dahani unique. Dien awachuch. Dien! Dien kuch. Dien kuch uagut. Wekasha dahanit amhligin. Oh, Ishan. Tuch hehwa amsitin. Wekatuwu, oh, wutlisini, wekatuwu awati. Oh, chip, katuwu. Yakatuwu aya imsinik. Wekatuwu akawasit. Wenauksati wusiti wekatuwu. Wenauksati duhehwa akawanik. Weshak anuk o weshaki awu. Ahehwa awe. We dien weshak anuk o awati. Weta akawagech. Wenauksati has awadak. Wekat awu shukwanach nauksati awe you are. Hech tuch hechwa kustien du shukat. Huchawe ganestish. So, again, gleit kachena in English. There was a woman and her name was Dien. She didn't have a mom and she didn't have a dad and nobody wanted her. She was sent all the way to an island, and on that island, she became a shaman. Many years passed on that island, and then one day, the chief became sick, and he called for Dien, and then Dien returned. Dien saw the chief laying there, and then she found, beside the chief, she found a little chickadee. And she took that chickadee and she tied him up. And then that chickadee turned from a chickadee, it turned right into a witch. And then the witch told about her magic. And she said, I have a skull and it's up there on that mountain over there. And that is my magic. So Dien, the shaman, walked up there and found that skull, and she took that skull and she threw it to the bottom of a lake. And they say that the chickadee was the first witch. And they say that before that first witch, there was no black magic. Thank you for listening.
Goodness, sheesh, we're on time. Wow. So Ganesh Sheesh, I just want to take the time to say Ganesh Sheesh Lakarat Kach. Thank you for everything, everyone. And a big thank you to the coordinators and staff for an amazing event. So if we could give them a round of applause. I don't know about you all, but eat Ian Uaha. Are you all hungry? Because eat Ian Uaha, I'm hungry. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Anach Lahash. She just wants to say some closing comments and then end us with a prayer.
Thank you very much. And just a couple things that I want to mention before I say the prayer, please. Number one that I want to talk about is this is a very good beginning. I shouldn't say a beginning, but I should say that it is something very encouraging to see it coming back, that we want to be together as a people from the three Tlingit communities. And I think this is where we're going to gain the strength that we can pass on to our children, our grandchildren. And from there, we know it's going to carry on. And the younger people will have an easier way to go, because a lot of them can know how to work with the modern technology now, which our grandfathers and our grandparents, they didn't know those things, but now they have all these easier things to work with. So hopefully this will be a good beginning, and that we can have a good gathering again some other place. And one thing that I wouldn't mind to see, we as inland Tlingit people, like when we gather like this, we should be proudly to wear our vests or whatever. Because if you look around, if you're wearing your vest or whatever, you could just see what clan they come from. And when I got the mic, I want to share one short little story with you guys before I say the prayer. And like that one there too, I'll tell it in Tlingit first and then translate for myself. Tlingit adachas kawa'u. Kukalti this estudiati. Chahogade kakhan nuka ya atha astuqaide ashunakh. Itlia ha anida kaktuat ayatu atha. Legati ha qayatil kiden studunuk. Excuse this one thing that I've slipped there. This story is about a lonely man and a seagull. A seagull in Tlingit is called Kaitledi. How many of you could say it, Kaitledi? And Kekati Kakeo, Kiskadin student, Nokia, Kadaya, Kutnin, Yin Hagudakot, Yi Kaa. You know, Tishai, Kayat, Sadu to Arts, Honda Kaktuat. Kushimasa Koed Wuni. Ya, they Kayat, to a Yanach Kayaha. It lane Kaya Nego Artuk Kenek in. It take it to you at Kaya, the Kanachanatin, Yen Tish. To the Naku Yachtleх. Adan gati ako reju tia ayacht at wugud. Ayacht wugud. Jachana gudja das is ketel de kam de kin. Ja kinder ach kem de kin yo. Tlaket kao shi. Kedelde. Qaatsa shagit tukhande ya qokhte an at aqas aw akhtas hastu an ite ta atushi aqas shukana khudu akhyo yo lido sagushi. The Tlingit people used to travel all over. They were staying by a lake in the springtime of the year, and pretty soon they started becoming aware that they were running short of food, so they were going to go back to another camp to get more food. And one man, he wasn't feeling very good, so he told them, "Go without me. If I go with you, it's going to take you too long." So they told me, "Yeah, we'll leave you a little bit of food and a little bit of medicine. We'll be right back anyway." But something happened where it took them way longer than they're supposed to be gone. And sure enough, this man too, he started to feel a little better, and every day he's feeling a little better. But one thing that started to get the best of him was loneliness. Very lonely, nothing else alive beside him. So out of loneliness, he took a walk on the lakeshore. While he was out there, here a seagull flew over him and just hovered there. He looked up at it, and he was so glad to see something else alive beside himself that he started singing, "Kedelde, kedelde." Just then, here those people were coming back too, and they heard singing coming from their campsite. This is the first time they ever heard yodeling. They learned that from a lonely Tlingit man. Okay, now if we can all stand, I'll say a closing prayer. Tikian Kao. Gunnels cheese, Shachsadi, Gunnels cheese, Ea, Wiscoted Adi, Akatu hints a sick air at the hand of Kusti, Shachsadi. Either Shahada Tia, Hakaga the she. Gunnels cheese, here, Kau, Kiden, Yaha Yukatanke, Kaha Kusti, Dayukatusletki. Hein genesticht zat ik erin, ja nee, zeg ook de heim de hai. Kunnen cheese, zat ik kunnen cheese.
So yek e chana at chai. Oh, you want to say something? Can you? Yeah, yeah.
It's to show us how we are travelers.
Is there any wipes? We just have to wipe it quick.
Most of you know that part of my job was to fight fires all over Canada. One of the places I was fighting fires, a little place called Summer Beaver. It's out by Lansdale House, Wepaquay. And I'm fighting fire there, and I'm the only First Nation pilot. So these kids come running down to me. They're talking to me in Cree, and I don't understand them. I tell them, I'm a West Coast, I'm from Tlingit, from the West Coast. So I became known as the Tlingit with the English accent. But anyways, the story was, every day this guy came down, he was an elder. He came down to the pad where I was landing, because I landed the last one every day because I took the crews out, checked the fires. And he talked to me in Cree. I never understood him, never. 2 years later, I run into the CO in Thunder Bay. And I said, "Hey, you remember Alec? He always used to come down and he talked to me, just jabber away in Cree." And I said, "What did he say?"
And he said he found out that you are Tlingit. The stories that he heard from his grandparents is 2 Tlingit boats coming out to Lansdowne House in Ontario on a trading expedition. So I started spending a whole summer. How did our people get out there from here? Good question. How did our people get out to Lansdowne House in Ontario? Goodness, sheesh.
Goodness, sheesh. So it's... Okay, I'll be ready. So it is now Chana at Chayi Itach. Chana at Chayi Itach. So it's dinner time. Yeah. So I think dinner is just over there, and then hooch away. I think we're now finished, and then. But stay tuned for the website for future dates. So Ganachish Isa Ahi. Thank you all for listening to me, because I like to speak a lot today. Hello, hello. Sorry, Ida just wants to say something quickly. She just caught me before. So if everyone wants to just listen for a second.
Is it on there?
Yep, it's on.
Hello, my name is Ida Kakansi. I'm Deshi Ton from Tagish. And our people used to live in Tagish a long time ago, and we're still living down there now. Is Mark here? Where's Mark? Hagu akan kadu. We chose Mark, my people chose Mark as a young man because he was a good speaker. So I feel good if I got him here. I think it's really important that I tell you this story because I'm 92 years old now, and I feel like my time is running short, especially when I got these white man legs walking around with me. Anyway, my father and mom used to tell us stories all the time. And one of the stories that they told was this man and woman got married, and the man was from Athlone. I think it was the man, I'm not sure yet. But I was just a wee little thing when they told us the story. And they said they got married, and the people was so important for one of them that lived in Athlone, that came from Athlone, that people in Tagish decided to give them a piece of land that they owned. They said that river up ahead of Tagish, ahead of, Tagish, I guess, by the big island, other side, there's a river there running down at the head of the lake. I don't remember now what they call it. Anyway, you could see this. When you go up the lake, you could see that river. And they own that river, the Tagish Kwan people. But when those young people got married, the Tagish people decided that marriage was important, so they gave them half of that river. A few years ago, maybe about 3 years ago, there was a meeting in Tagish, and the government put a meeting on, and they had people come to talk about the rivers and lakes. And one of the guys stood up, and he was a young Gletka. You guys know what I mean. Anyways, he said, I just wanted to tell you that we own this land right up to Tagish Bridge, he said. And I was just flabbergasted. Luckily, I was there at that meeting. And after the meeting, I asked him, what made you say that? Well, that's what the people in Athlone told me to say. He said, we own right up to Tagish Bridge. I said, you better go back and find out, because there's a big town over on the other side of the river. When our people was there living there, there was a big town there, Tagish Town. And there was a graveyard there. It's still there yet. But now all those cabins are fallen down, and then all the grave signs, the crosses are all down. But when I was a kid, I remembered it there. I can't stand up too long, so I'm going to sit down, okay? And just excuse me.
Okay.
Anyway, what I really thought it was important to tell you was that our land was way up at the end of that river, the river that goes from Athlone into the Yukon. I don't remember the name of it now, but I was on that river one time, and the Tushai used to go up that river. Not the Tushai maybe, but other boats from Athlone used to come across. And they came from Alaska, those boats and stuff. So my dad was born and raised in Juneau, and so he knew that country really well. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that I think my time is running short, and I don't think the younger people know that story about where our land goes to, or where it started from. And so it was important, it's important to find out, to tell you about it. The graves in Tagish is other side of the village now. Used to be a big town. I remember when I was a kid that we used to go up the river, and all the houses and the grave posts and stuff you could see on the land when you're going by. So I know that the Tagish people were there, and I think when we were kids and we heard them say that we still own half of that river, and that young man told me that they own that right up to Tagish Bridge, he said. And I tell him, and what do you think we should do about our graveyard and stuff over the side? I said, if you look around, you're going to find those graves. Some of those graves are hundreds of years old there. So I want all of you young people to remember that, you be careful of how you talk and how you treat everything. And the reason I called Mark over here is our old people chose him as a speaker because he's a good speaker. And, he used to work in the legislature too. That's how good he was. And I thank you very much for listening to me. I feel that I have to tell you this because I'm afraid that young people won't remember that maybe they never even heard about that river belonging to us. And they used to go, when they went to Alaska, they used to go through that river and down from Athlone to the river from Juneau runs through their place. And I was surprised when I saw that river in Juneau. They said, oh, that's the one that goes to Athlone, they said. And our people, and the rivers ran right to Alaska, St. Michael, and around Fairbanks. And that's where the Yukon River runs into Fairbanks. So our people used to travel by boat all over the place. And then they walked too when they couldn't travel by boat. They walked too. My husband told me one time to go get something from the store, and I tell him, you go down to the store. He said, you don't walk anymore. I told him, well, I used to walk, I say. I remember I walked one time from Carcross to Teslin. Oh, he said, you wouldn't even go to the store. How are you going to walk to Teslin? He told me. But you know, our people used to be, really used to walk lots. And my grandma told me she walked up and down the Chilkoot when they opened up the country. She said, sometimes my husband and I, we walked 2 times from Dai to the head of Lake. There's a lake other side of Bennett, and Lake Lindeman, they called it. They used to walk up there from the store up there because they had people traveling to Dawson, and they had to have $1,000 worth of food before they go. And those people, Grandma and Grandpa used to pack for the people up there. One time I was up on top of the mountain and in the bush and right by the road, and I saw a pair of high-heel shoes there. Poor lady had high-heel shoes walking up there. I really wanted to do that trail because Grandma used to talk about going up the Chilkoot like nobody's business. And when I got up about almost to the top, I turned around and looked to Dai, and I was surprised at how high that mountain was. And I wondered, what in the name of God am I doing here? And anyways, one of the nurses that I worked with challenged me to take that trip with her, so I did. I took it up, and by God, I made it, but I barely made it. And I wondered, I was surprised that Grandma used to say they did it twice. One time, a few times they did it 2 trips a day, right from Dai to Lindeman Lake. Yeah, so I wanted you people to know about that land, how it used to work, where we used to go to. Yeah, and that part of the land was other side around Labarge, you know, and now they say they even own other side there. Our people, some of our people landed and stayed in Asiac. We got Asiac trinkets there. And they even used to walk to Ross River. My dad used to walk to Ross River, and he knew all the markings in there. And when they made that Alaska Highway, they hired my Uncle Johnny to lead them, the people from Carcross to Ross River. And he came to our house, and he asked my dad what the markings, what it looked like and stuff, and how to get over there. So my dad told him where all the rivers and lakes were and stuff, and how to get around there. So Uncle Johnny got the credit for that, the Alaska Highway from Carcross to Ross River, Watson Lake. But my dad was the one that told him how to go. And he even told my brother, who was about 14 years old, there was one miner that was staked a claim up in Quiet Lake, and he got sick, and the doctors wanted to send him to somewhere, to Vancouver or someplace, and they said he was very sick and he had to go. And he said, but all my papers are at home in my house in Ross River. And he said, is there anybody around here that could get my papers, he said. And Mr. Watson told him, yeah, you can ask George. He said, George knows the country really good. And so they called him in, and by God, my dad, they told my dad and what they wanted, and my dad said, well, I can't go. He said, I'm working city on the railroad, he said, but I know somebody that could make it, he said. And they said, who? My 17-year-old boy, he said. And they sent my brother Pete over there. Just by the markings of the mountains and the lakes and everything, he went over to Ross River from Carcross to pick up those important papers that he needed to get back to. And that man made it. He got his papers all right. And my brother was so proud of himself. He said, I couldn't miss the markings that Dad told me about. He said, it was easy to see if you were looking, he told me. So, you know, that's the way the old people used to be a long time ago. They used to know everything, and the land, how it worked and stuff. Can you imagine that we never had any roads or anything around here? We used to, when the gold rush started, they took cows and horses down to Dawson City, and they had a big cow trail from Carcross to, well, from Skagway to Whitehorse. And we went to Whitehorse before the gold, when the gold rush was going on, I mean, when the Second World War was going on. My dad took our family down there because there was only 5 cars in Carcross. And Dad was the one, he had one too. It took us 3 days from Carcross to Whitehorse. And my brothers had to build, and my dad, they built 3 bridges to go there. They built one in Spirit Lake, and one at Robinson River, and one at McCrae, I think it was, or somewhere around that way, anyway. Imagine 3 days to take us to go there. But we all wanted to go to see Whitehorse. I'm sorry, I guess I kept you guys too long, but I was thinking it was important that you know our country and the Tagish people. One of them was started up way up where that river runs into Yukon from Atlin. We used to own that river, but they gave as a wedding present half of it to that young couple. But they were pretty old, I guess, when I was around. But I didn't remember their names. My dad knew the names of the people, and I don't think the Atlin people know.
Supper's waiting, people are hungry.
Huh?
Supper's ready, we're gonna eat.
Oh, okay. I have to stop talking.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi there, folks. I just want to thank you on behalf of the steering committee. Again, my name is Shaga Key. I want to thank you for staying through the whole thing, and I especially want to do a shout out and a thank you to Autumn Jules. You did an amazing job leading us through the afternoon. Thank you very much. I want to commend you for your bravery and your courage in coming up and showing us the way with the Tlingit language. And I know that all of this was made possible as well to have the inspiration and motivation brought to us infusing the day with our culture, with our language, and that was made possible by Children of the Taku. So I also want to do a shout out to Children of the Taku for the work that you guys are doing, the programming, and for Gata Kajak and championing the language and showing a new way to our young people to show us that language is acceptable, it is accessible, and it certainly is our birthright. So I want to thank everyone for all of the work that you put in to make today possible. For those people that stuck around, for those people online, this was a really great event, and we're certainly looking forward to more. As a final note closing down, there is a lot of food. We had enough food for 75 people, so please eat one and take one with you. Ganashish.